Hi there, my name is Mike Montgomery, and today I'd like to show you how I built this round, farmhouse-style dining table on Modern Builds. So I started by just using a string and a pencil to mark out a 6-foot circle on my shop floor. This way I could line up my 2x4s as well as be able to see how long I needed to cut them on my chop saw. Now I should go ahead and mention that all of the materials and supplies for this project can be purchased at the Home Depot using the Home Depot Consumer Credit Card. It's a great way to help finance some of the bigger projects like this one or any other ideas you might have. So if you're interested in finding out any more information, feel free to visit my link in the description, www.THDCard.com/Mike. Thanks a lot. So with all my 2x4s cut, I moved on to marking locations on each 2x4 where I would be drilling and installing dowels. And I'll add a link to the doweling jig that I'm using in the description of the video, but a biscuit joiner would work well also. So this tabletop had 18 2x4 slats, and that was way more than I wanted to glue up at one time, so I decided to glue it up in 4 separate pieces, and then I could glue 2 of those pieces together, and finally the 2 big halves together. This made it a lot less stressful for me. It also let me make sure that I had the tabletop really flat each time I glued it up. Now dowels or biscuits are really going to help keep everything flat and level, but you'll still need to use either a belt sander or a hand plane to flatten everything out. A while back I saw Jimmy DiResta make a circle cutting jig using a circular saw, so I decided to replicate that. And I just screwed my circular saw onto a 1/2-inch piece of scrap plywood. Then I could measure my radius from the blade, which would also be the radius of the circle I'm cutting, drill a 1/4-inch hole for a 1/4-inch dowel, and then do the same on the bottom side of the tabletop. Once everything was in, I could go ahead and start cutting a circle. Now the trick to this is doing it in really shallow passes, about 1/16 of an inch on each pass. It's probably not as quick as using a router, which I'll show later, but if you don't like routers or don't have a router, this is a great workaround. I just did a few passes, cut off the excess with a jigsaw, and then I could come back and do my finishing passes with the circular saw. Once I had my inside circle cut, I needed to work on the border, which is basically a ring, and I made that first by cutting an octagon out of 2x10s. Now all the math that you'll need will be in the written article. I'll leave a link to the website that I used to figure everything out. There's a really simple calculator, and it should give you all the information that you'll need. Then I could just go ahead and tape my octagon together and lay my tabletop on top of it. Then I marked out the outline as well as a couple reference points, and then used a jigsaw to cut that inside radius out on each piece. Then I could just smooth that out with a drum sander attachment for my drill press, and finally use pocket hole screws to attach each piece together and each piece to the inside of the tabletop. I used a lot of glue because I didn't have perfect contact everywhere, so I wanted to make sure where I had good contact, I had really good hold. And anywhere that I had any gaps, I used glue and sawdust to fill. I prefer doing this over wood putty because 1, it adds a little bit of strength, but 2, it actually takes the stain a little bit and really blends in well. Now the cool thing about this circle cutting jig is it works with a router just as well as it does with a circular saw. Now I don't have a plunge router, which would make this a lot easier, but it will work with a fixed base router as long as you have a long enough straight bit. Once I had the circle cut and the bottom edge rounded over, I moved on to cutting my base. Now everything is cut from 4x4s and at a 45-degree angle, and I'm doing half-lap joints on the top and the bottom X braces. This is all really simple to do with a circular saw, and it comes out with a really clean result. You just take multiple passes at the same depth and then use a hammer to knock out all those loose pieces. Then you get a sharp chisel and just clean everything up. And once you have one piece done, you do the same thing to the opposite side of the receiving piece. Once it's all cleaned up, do a dry test fit without any glue. You want to make sure that both of your pieces meet really flush and that all of your corners are really square. Once you know it's all good, you can take it back apart, add glue, and attach it permanently. And once I had the bottom X brace all done, I did the exact same process for the top X brace as well. I wanted a little bit of extra strength where my center beam met my 2 X braces, so I drilled a hole and inserted an 1.25-inch dowel in the center of each one. Then, when I cut my center beam, I drilled a receiving hole in the center of it as well. Then when I put them together, they would have a little bit of extra surface area to meet, and it would just make a lot stronger bond. It also helped line everything up. Next, I cut and drilled 1-inch holes that would be my recess for my hardware in each of my corner braces. Then I could go ahead and glue, pre-drill, and screw them together. Now I needed a way of hiding my hardware, and that's what that initial recess is for. I can plug it up with a dowel and no one will ever see it. Plus, it kind of makes it look like I used the dowels as joinery, which is cool. And if you're wondering how to find the length of braces to cut, first you'll just find the center line in your center beam. Then you'll mark another line the opposite distance away on your X brace. Then the hypotenuse between those points is what the length needs to be. So with all that figured out, I could go ahead and attach my top X brace the same way as I did the bottom. Then I could flip it over and install all of the corner braces. And while I have a second, I should go ahead and mention that if you plan on building this project, make sure and check out the written article linked in the description. It'll have a lot more information as well as a written supplies and materials list as well. So be sure and check that out. So I went ahead and sanded everything up to 220 grit and brought it into my garage. The garage is a lot smaller than my shop, so it'll be a lot easier to heat so I can put on the finish. And I'm starting with a Minwax pre-stain wood conditioner. Now what this does is it soaks into the wood and allows the stain to penetrate more evenly and helps to prevent getting that blotchy look that you get sometimes when you use pine. Next, I'm gonna follow that up with some special walnut stain from Minwax. I've used this on a few projects before, like my barn door, and I really liked how it came out, so I'm gonna use it again. And finally, for a clear coat, I'm gonna be using polyacrylic by Minwax. I have never used this before, but I'm really excited to try it out. Supposedly, it has a really clear finish, and with just a few coats, it is done. So don't forget, all of the finished products as well as everything else to build this project are available from the Home Depot, and you can purchase them using the Home Depot consumer credit card. It's a great way to help finance some of the bigger projects like this, or maybe a shop or tool upgrade. So if you're interested in finding out more information as well as helping to support my channel, please go to www.thdcard.com/Mike. Thanks a lot. So after I let the finish cure and air out for a day or two, I installed the base to the tabletop. And I just used my drill bit from my pocket hole jig to recess those screws a bit. And I also installed some leveling feet that have felt on the bottom. This way the floors won't get scratched and I can make the tabletop really nice and level. And once that was done, so was the table. Now I know I say this a lot, but this came out way better than I was expecting. The finish is awesome, the stain looks great, and I love the way the polyacrylic satin finish came out. Super great. Plus, it was a gift from my grandma and she really loved it, which is the most important part. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this project and this video. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button below. That lets me know what kind of projects you guys are into and what you might be interested in seeing next. If this is your first time to my channel, I'd like to say welcome, as well as please subscribe, because I put out a new project video every week and you'll definitely want to keep updated with those. And if you'd like to see my last video, you can click right here and it'll take you there. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time on Modern Builds.